The city of Orn 5 stood tall with shining towers made of glass and metal. Lights blinked across bridges that hung between buildings like silver threads. Cars flew in lines above the streets, humming quietly as they passed. Below, the ground level was full of dust, noise, and people who never looked up. In this city, thousands walked each day. Some were humans, some were aliens from far-off planets. It was common to see creatures with blue skin, metal arms, glowing eyes, or scales. But no one paid attention to each other. Everyone walked fast. Everyone stared at their screens or looked straight ahead. Near the edge of the lower district, beside a dirty wall covered in old posters, an alien woman sat alone. Her knees were pulled to her chest. Her head was low. Her hair was tangled and her skin looked pale, almost silver. Her clothes were torn and too thin for the cold wind that blew through the narrow streets. A half-broken trash bin stood next to her. She reached into it slowly and pulled out a bruised piece of fruit. She sniffed it, then took a small bite. Her face showed no joy, only hunger. People passed by her without stopping. Some glanced once, then looked away. Some shook their heads. A few turned their faces, as if she made the street dirty by just being there. No one said a word to her, until Bryn came. Bryn was a young man with rough hands and tired eyes. He wore an old worker's jacket and boots that had seen many repairs. He worked as a cleaner for the city roads. Every day he pushed a heavy cart full of tools, trash bags, and a broom. He was used to being ignored too. That morning, Bryn had just finished cleaning a long street near the market. His shift was over. He was on his way home with a small metal box that held his lunch. It wasn't much, just a piece of bread, to fruit bars, and a small bottle of water. As he walked through the lower road, he saw her. She was digging through the garbage again, her fingers shaking from cold or hunger. Bryn slowed his steps. Others kept walking. A group of office workers passed without a glance. A food seller across the street packed his cart without looking her way. Bryn stood still. He didn't know why, but something about her stopped him. Maybe it was the way she moved, carefully like a child afraid of being punished. Or maybe it was the look in her eyes, like someone who had forgotten what kindness felt like. He stepped closer. The alien woman noticed him and froze. She pulled her hand back from the trash and looked at him. Her eyes were wide and bright, like glass marbles. Her body curled up tighter, ready to run if needed. Bryn knelt down and opened his lunch box. He took out the bread and one fruit bar. He placed them gently on the ground in front of her. Then he stepped back. She stared at the food, then at him. "It's clean," Bryn said. "You can eat it. It's yours." She looked at the bread for a long time, unsure. Then she slowly reached out and picked it up. She sniffed it, just like she did with the fruit before. Then she took a small bite. Her hands shook again, but not from fear, from hunger. Bryn didn't speak more. He just sat on the side of the road, a few steps away. People walked past him too. Some looked at him like he was strange. One person even laughed quietly, shaking his head. Bryn didn't care. The alien woman finished the bread, then the fruit bar. She held the wrapper in her hand, staring at it like it was a gift. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "What's your name?" Bryn asked. She blinked. Then she pointed at her chest. "Nara," she said in a quiet voice. Bryn nodded. "I'm Bryn." Nara looked at him for a moment, then looked down. She whispered something in a language he didn't know. He didn't ask what it meant. He just sat there with her, watching the sky turn from gray to orange as the day moved on. After a while, Bryn stood up. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said. "You stay safe, all right?" Nara didn't speak, but she gave the smallest nod. Bryn turned and pushed his cart away. Behind him, Nara sat a little straighter. She pulled the old blanket tight around her shoulders. She was still hungry. She was still cold. But for the first time in many days, she felt something else. Seen. The city kept moving. Cars flew by, screens blinked with news and ads. People rushed to their homes, their jobs, their lives. But in a quiet corner of a forgotten street, a human had stopped. A human had shared his food. A human had spoken to her like she mattered, and that small act would change everything. The next morning, Bryn woke up early. He made the sandwiches and packed a small thermos of warm soup. The bread was plain and the soup was simple, but it was warm and fresh. He also packed an old scarf he had found in his closet. It had a few loose threads, but it was soft and warm. Bryn stepped out into the cold streets of HFY. The tower stood tall as always, blinking with blue and green lights. The air was dry and filled with the sound of passing hover cars. People walked with fast steps, their faces blank and their eyes fixed forward. Bryn pushed his work cart as usual. But today he was not thinking about trash or tools. He was thinking about Nara. He wondered if she would still be there. He wondered if someone had chased her away or if she had left during the night. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she thought he wouldn't come back. As he turned into the narrow road near the waste district, he slowed his steps. The same broken wall and trash bin stood in their place. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then he saw her. Nara sat in the same corner, her knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped tightly around her body. Her eyes were closed and her head leaned against the wall. She looked even colder today. Her shoulders shook slightly in the morning wind. Bryn walked over slowly and knelt down beside her. He didn't speak at first. He opened his bag and placed the soup and sandwiches in front of her. Then he unwrapped the scarf and gently held it out. Nara opened her eyes and blinked. Her hands moved slowly as she picked up the sandwich. She sniffed it once, then took a small bite. She ate carefully, as if afraid it would disappear. Bryn smiled softly. "It's all right. There's soup too. It's warm." Nara looked at the thermos, then at him. She picked it up and drank slowly. A small sound escaped her lips, like a quiet breath of surprise. It was warm. It was real. She wrapped the scarf around her neck. Her fingers traced the cloth like it was something precious. "Thank you," she whispered. Bryn sat on the ground beside her again. "I told you I'd come back." Nara looked at him with calm eyes now. Her face was still tired, but something had changed. She was not just surviving. She was listening. Bryn asked gently, "Where are you from?" Nara looked down at her hands. For a moment she said nothing. Then she spoke slowly. "My world is gone," she said. "I came on a ship with others. The ship was damaged. We landed far from here. They left. I stayed." Bryn listened carefully. Her words were broken, but clear. "Why didn't you go with them?" he asked. Nara shook her head. "I was sick. They were afraid. They said I would bring trouble. They locked me out." Bryn felt a quiet anger in his chest, but he didn't let it show. He didn't know her story fully yet, but he knew what it felt like to be pushed away. He asked, "Do you have any family?" Nara shook her head again. "All gone, long ago." She looked up at the sky, where the towers blocked most of the light. Her eyes seemed lost in thought. Bryn stayed with her until his break was over. Before he left, he handed her a small bag. "More food for later," he said. "I'll be back tomorrow." Nara held the bag close. She nodded once. It was not a big smile, but her eyes were softer. As Bryn walked away, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. A few people had stopped to look. Not many, but enough. Some looked curious, some looked confused, but none stepped forward. Bryn didn't care. He had seen someone in need. He had helped. That was enough for him. The next few days followed the same pattern. Bryn brought food and small things to help Nara. A blanket one day, a pair of gloves the next. He cleaned the corner where she stayed so it didn't smell so bad. He even fixed the broken trash bin beside her spot so no sharp metal could hurt her. Nara began to speak more. Her words were slow, but each day she said a little more. She told Bryn about her home, a green planet with silver trees and soft rains. She told him about her people who used light and sound to grow food and build houses. She told him about how the wars began, how planets fell, and how her ship had escaped just in time. Her voice always grew quiet when she spoke of the past. Bryn didn't ask too many questions. He just listened. One day, as they sat together and shared a warm drink, Bryn asked her, Why didn't you ask anyone else for help? Nara looked at him for a long time. Her silver eyes blinked slowly. I tried, she said. Many times. They looked, then they walked away. Bryn felt his chest tighten. They didn't hear me, she added. But you did. Bryn didn't know what to say, so he just nodded out that night as he walked home. He looked around the city. The lights were bright. The roads were clean. The air was quiet, but it all felt hollow. He thought about Nara sitting alone in the cold, and he wondered how many others were also sitting somewhere, unseen by the crowd. He made a promise to himself that night. He would not let her be forgotten. Again, not while he was still here. Bryn was always careful with time. He worked 6 hours a day cleaning roads and walkways. He knew the quiet corners of Oran 5, the ones where rich people never walked and cameras blinked less often. After meeting Nara, he used his lunch breaks and free hours to help her. Some days, he would stay longer than planned. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't need to. One cold morning, Bryn walked down the road with 2 bowls of hot rice and vegetables. The steam came out of the container as he carried it, covered with cloth to keep it warm. He turned into the same alley near the waste district where Nara now lived under a new tarp. He had placed over the broken wall, but something was different. A patrol droid floated above the alley, red lights blinking across its glass body. 2 officers stood beside it, both wearing black jackets with silver badges. Their eyes scanned the space like machines. Bryn's heart sank. He stepped forward. Is there a problem here? He asked. One officer turned. He had a sharp face and a gold voice. Your name, Bryn. The officer tapped on a small screen in his hand. You've been seen visiting this sector often, spending time with an undocumented alien, feeding her, giving supplies. Bryn kept his voice calm. She's not hurting anyone. She just needs help. The second officer spoke now. Her voice was not angry, but firm. She has no ID, no visa, no record. That's a risk to public safety. If someone like her uses unregistered abilities or technology, it becomes a problem. You understand? Bryn looked past them. Nara sat against the wall, eyes wide with fear. Her hands were hidden in her sleeves. She looked smaller than before, like she was trying to disappear again. She's done nothing wrong. Bryn said, she just wants to survive. City. Law is clear, the first officer said. If she's reported again, she'll be removed. If you assist her again, your work permit could be suspended. You can also be fined. Do you understand? Bryn nodded slowly, not trusting his voice. The officers left without waiting for more questions. The droid hovered for a few seconds, then followed them down the road. Bryn walked to Nara and gave her the food. Her fingers were shaking. Are they coming back? She asked. I don't know, he said. Maybe. But I'm not leaving. Nara lowered her head. You should. They'll hurt you. Bryn sat beside her. If I walk away, who's going to bring you food? Who's going to listen to you? They want us to be quiet. I won't be. Nara looked at the food and began to eat slowly. The warmth seemed to calm her. Bryn noticed how thin she still looked, even after days of meals. She had been alone for too long. I can find another place, she said quietly, farther away. No one will see me. Bryn shook his head. That's what they want. To make you invisible again. No. We'll find something better. Over the next few days, Bryn worked carefully. He used his small savings to buy pieces of scrap wood and plastic sheets. In an empty alley behind a closed factory, he built a small shelter. It was simple but strong. A box-shaped home with a curtain as a door and soft padding inside. Nara moved there during the night. She said nothing, but Bryn could see her eyes shine a little brighter. Each morning, he came with food. In the evenings, he brought extra blankets or tools to fix the shelter. He started teaching her simple words in Basic. She picked them up quickly. Her voice grew stronger. One day, Bryn found her writing in the dirt with a stick. She was drawing strange shapes. What's that? He asked. Nara smiled a little. My language. These mean water. These mean sky. These mean safe place. Bryn sat beside her. Teach me. She looked surprised. Then she began to show him the shapes, one by one. They laughed when he got them wrong, and she corrected his hand. It was the first time Bryn had heard her laugh, but peace did not last long. One evening, as Bryn walked home after visiting Nara, he noticed the patrol drones flying low. They followed him for 3 streets. He didn't stop. He kept walking, pretending not to notice. At his door, a message was waiting. A warning. Second report filed. Continued contact with unregistered subject. Further action will result in charges. Bryn sat in silence. His hands tightened. He knew the law. He knew what could happen. But he also knew what was right. The next day, he didn't go to work. He went to the lower market and bought a cheap voice recorder. That night, he asked Nara to tell her story again. Why? She asked. So others can hear it, Bryn said. You don't have to hide if people know who you are. She looked unsure but agreed. She spoke slowly, carefully. She told the story of her world, her people, how war had destroyed everything, how she had arrived on Orn 5, how everyone ignored her, until one human stopped. Bryn shared the story on a small network used by workers and traders. It wasn't popular, but it reached people. A few shared it, a few asked questions, most stayed silent. But something had started. That night, Bryn returned home and found another warning on his door. This time, there was no message, just a yellow mark painted beside his nameplate. It meant trouble. Bryn wiped it off with a cloth. He wasn't afraid. He had found a reason to stand tall. In the quiet parts of Orn 5, where light never touched the walls, a human and an alien were building something that rules could not erase. Hope. Bryn walked through the streets of Orn 5 with careful steps. His jacket was zipped all the way up and his hands stayed deep in his pockets. He kept his head low, not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want to bring attention to himself. People were starting to notice him now. Some stared, others whispered. His face had appeared on small screens in the worker district. They called him the cleaner who helped an alien. Some mocked him, some were silent. A few smiled at him, but they never spoke. Bryn didn't care about being known. He cared about Nara. He arrived at the hidden shelter behind the factory and knocked lightly on the side of the door. A soft voice came from inside. You can come in. He stepped inside and saw Nara sitting with her legs crossed, wrapping wires around an old metal box. She had found it near a junk shop, with a few tools and broken pieces from the street. She had turned it into something new. It now blinked with soft blue light. What's that? Bryn asked. Nara looked up. It listens to the air. I made it when I was young. It helps find signals from far away. Bryn sat beside her. From space, yes. She said, maybe from my people, maybe from others. I don't know, but I want to hear something. Anything. Bryn watched her fingers move quickly and smoothly. She worked like a trained engineer. It surprised him. You're good with machines. Nara gave a small smile. I was a signal builder on my home world. Before it was gone. She didn't speak more about that, and Bryn didn't ask. Later that evening, while the city grew quiet, Bryn lit a small heat lamp inside the shelter. He shared the food he brought, and they sat together in calm silence. The wind outside was cold, but inside the little shelter, it felt safe. Nara looked at Bryn and said, You know they are watching you? Bryn nodded. I saw the drones again. This morning. They're not hiding anymore. You should stop coming, she said softly. They will arrest you. I don't care, Bryn replied. I care about you. That's enough. Nara looked at him for a long time. Then she reached into a cloth bag and took out a small round object. It was smooth and glowing slightly from the inside. What is that? Bryn asked. She held it tightly. A core crystal. It is part of me. Bryn frowned. Part of you? She nodded. My people are not like humans. We are born with this inside. It gives us energy. It connects us to each other. It also gives power. Bryn looked at the crystal, then at her. What kind of power? Nara was quiet. Then she stood up and walked to the open space near the wall. She raised her hand toward a pile of broken tools Bryn had brought earlier. Slowly, the tools lifted into the air. They floated in a circle, spinning gently. Her eyes glowed faintly. Bryn stared, speechless. She lowered her hand. The tools dropped quietly back to the ground. I can move things, sense things. If I focus, I can stop pain or help wounds. But if I lose control, it can be dangerous. Bryn looked at her carefully. Have you hurt anyone before? No, she said quickly. But I was afraid I might. That's why I stayed quiet. That's why I didn't use it, even when I was hungry, even when I was alone. Bryn stood up and walked closer. You saved that power, even though it could have helped you survive. Nara nodded. Yes, I didn't want to become what they feared. Bryn looked at her with deep respect. She had strength beyond anything he had known. Not just power in her hands, but power in her heart. Thank you for trusting me, he said. Nara smiled gently. Thank you for seeing me. The next day, something happened that changed everything. Bryn was walking down the road with 2 bags of supplies. He had just passed the corner shop when a shout rang out from the alley ahead. A group of 3 men stood blocking the entrance to Nara's shelter. They were city worker coats, but their faces were twisted with anger. One held a sharp metal rod. The others had heavy gloves. Bryn dropped the bags and ran. Leave her alone, he shouted. The men turned. One of them laughed. So this is the alien helper. What's she paying you with? Bryn stepped in front of the entrance. She's done nothing wrong. Get out of here. The one with the rod raised it. You think she's harmless? You're a fool. He stepped forward. Bryn stood his ground. Suddenly, a soft hum filled the air. A wave of warm energy passed through the alley. The rod flew out of the man's hand and landed far behind him. All 3 men froze. Their eyes went wide. Nara stepped out of the shelter. Her silver skin shimmered faintly. Her eyes glowed bright, calm but powerful. You will not hurt him, she said. The men backed away slowly, then turned and ran. Bryn turned to her, still breathing fast. You protected me. Nara looked down. I didn't want to use it, but I couldn't let them harm you. Bryn smiled. You did the right thing. That night, word spread across the lower district. People whispered about the silver-skinned alien with strange powers. Some were afraid, some were curious. But one thing was clear, she wasn't hiding anymore. Bryn and Nara sat quietly in the shelter, watching the city lights in the sky. You showed them who you are, Bryn said. Yes, Nara answered. But only because of you. Bryn looked at her. What do we do now? Nara looked at the stars. We wait, she said. Something is coming. The morning air was still and quiet. The city of Orm 5 stood tall as always, its towers rising into the sky like silver trees. But deep in the lower district, something had changed. A strange feeling moved through the air, like a soft hum that touched the skin. Bryn noticed it as he walked toward the shelter. His steps slowed, and his eyes scanned the sky. It looked the same as yesterday, but something felt different. The silence was too heavy. He reached the small alley where Nara stayed. Before he could call her name, he saw her standing outside. Her face turned upward. Her eyes were wide, not with fear, but with focus. Nara? Bryn asked, walking closer. She didn't move at first. Then she turned to him slowly. It's here, she said. The signal. I heard it. Bryn looked around. I don't hear anything. You can't, she said. It speaks in waves. Through the air, through light. Only my kind can feel it. Bryn stepped beside her. What does it mean? It means someone is looking for me, she said. Bryn's heart beat faster. Is it your people? Maybe, she said softly. But not all of them are kind. Bryn understood. If someone from her world had found her, it could be hope. It could also be danger. Nara led him into the shelter and showed him the machine she had built. It was glowing now, slowly and steadily, as if breathing. It's calling out, she said. I didn't send anything. It found me. Bryn watched the light move across the surface of the machine. Can you answer it? He asked. I could, she said. But if I do, it tells them where I am. I don't know who is listening. Bryn thought for a moment. What if we just wait? Maybe we learn more first. Nara nodded. Yes, that is safer. Later that day, the sky turned a strange shade of green. It lasted only a few minutes. But people across the lower district noticed. Rumors spread quickly. Some said it was a power test. Others believed a storm was coming. A few said it was alien activity. Bryn kept quiet. Nara stayed in the shelter, watching the machine dot at night. Bryn brought warm food and fresh water. Nara sat quietly, holding the core crystal in her hand. I feel something, she said. Someone familiar, but far away. Bryn sat beside her. Do you think it's a friend? I don't know, she whispered. But I'm afraid. Bryn placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You're not alone. The next day, the signal grew stronger. The machine's light blinked faster. Nara spent hours adjusting it. She added wires, turned dials, and read signals that Bryn couldn't understand. It's getting closer, she said. What is? Bryn asked. The ship, she answered. Someone is coming. Bryn looked at the sky. He saw nothing yet, but he believed her. That evening, strange shapes appeared in the clouds. A long line of lights moved across the sky in silence. People stopped in the streets to look. Children pointed. Shops closed early. The city went still for a moment. Then the message came. All across Oran 5, screens flickered. The same message appeared in every language. Unregistered alien presence detected. If the subject is not handed over, force will be used. People whispered in fear. Some blamed the city guards. Others looked toward the stars and stayed silent. Bryn stood in the middle of the road, watching the screen. His hands were cold, but not from the wind. He turned and ran toward the shelter. When he arrived, Nara was already packing a small bag. She had folded the blanket, wrapped the machine, and placed the crystal inside her coat. We need to hide, Bryn said quickly. Nara shook her head. No, if I hide, they will search. They will question others. I won't let them hurt you. You didn't do anything, Bryn said. They have no right. They don't care, she said. They are afraid of what I can do. They want to control it. Bryn paced the room. Then what do we do? Nara stood still, thinking. We tell them the truth. We let the people see. If they understand, they may protect us. Bryn looked at her. You're serious? Yes, she said. You showed me kindness. Now I will trust others to do the same. Bryn didn't argue. He took out his old recording device and pointed it at her. Tell them, he said. Nara nodded. She spoke slowly and clearly. My name is Nara. I come from a world that no longer lives. I arrived here by accident. I asked for help, but no one heard me. Only one human did. He gave me food, safety, and friendship. I have power, but I have never used it to harm anyone. I want peace. I want to stay. Bryn shared the message on the same network as before. This time, it spread faster. People who had seen her on the streets remembered her face. Some remembered how she sat quietly, never asking for anything. A few spoke up. A shopkeeper said he saw her cleaning trash near her shelter. A young boy said she had helped him find his lost drone. An old woman said she had seen her feed a stray animal. The message reached deeper than before. That night, a group of people came to the alley. They didn't come with weapons. They brought food, clothes, and blankets. One woman stepped forward. We heard the message. We want to help. Nara looked at them with wide eyes. Bryn nodded to her. Let them in, he said. And she did. For the first time, she wasn't alone. But the sky still held the danger, and the ship was still coming. The next morning, the city of Oran 5 woke up to silence. The traffic was slower. The screens across the streets showed no ads, only a glowing warning sign. Unauthorized alien presence confirmed. All citizens must remain calm. Air patrol is active. Do not interfere. The message played again and again. Above the clouds, a large ship hovered quietly. It did not land. It did not fire. But it watched. Everyone could feel it. A heavy presence above their heads. Bryn stood at the edge of the alley, where Nara's shelter was hidden. He looked up at the sky. His hands were tight around the old metal bar he had picked up from the street. It was not a weapon, just something to hold in case of trouble. Nara stood beside him. She wore a dark coat and had her crystal hidden under her scarf. Her face was calm, but her eyes showed sadness. "They're watching me," she said. "They are waiting." "For what?" Bryn asked. "For the people to give me up," she replied. Bryn looked around. A few neighbors were standing nearby. Some had helped the night before. One man had brought food. Another had shared a blanket. A young woman had brought a battery to help power Nera's machine. Now they stood together, quiet but strong. Bryn turned to them. "You don't have to stay. It might be dangerous." The young woman stepped forward. "She's one of us now." The old shopkeeper nodded. "She never hurt anyone. Why should we hand her over?" Others agreed. Their voices were low, but firm. A choice had been made. More people arrived throughout the morning. Not hundreds, but enough to block the entrance to the alley. They didn't shout. They didn't fight. They just stood. Men, women, humans, and aliens. They stood side by side, forming a wall with their bodies. They stood for one life. Nara looked at them, her hands shaking slightly. "I don't understand," she said. "Why do they care?" Bryn smiled. "Because you matter. Because someone has to take a stand. And now they see what I saw." A loud sound filled the air. The sky above shimmered. A beam of light came down from the ship, stopping just above. The buildings, it didn't burn. It didn't destroy. But it warned. A voice echoed through the streets. It was deep and calm, but cold. The subject known as Nara is to be turned over immediately. Failure to obey will result in removal by force. This is the final request. The crowd did not move. Bryn stepped forward, holding up a small device. He pressed the button, and Nara's message began to play through a speaker. "My name is Nara. I come from a world that no longer lives. I asked for help, but no one heard me. Only one human did. He gave me food, safety, and friendship. I want peace. I want to stay." The voice from the ship did not speak again. Instead, a group of silver drones dropped from the sky. They moved slowly, glowing with red lights. They flew above the crowd, scanning the people below. Bryn stepped in front of Nara. Others moved beside him. "You're not taking her," Bryn said loudly. "She's done nothing wrong." A drone flew closer, pointing a small beam of red light at Nara. She raised her hand calmly. A soft glow came from her skin. The beam stopped. "I will not harm you," she said to the drone. "But I will not go with you." The drone paused, then moved back into the air. The ship above hummed louder now. The light from its center grew brighter. Bryn felt fear rise in his chest. He looked at Nara. "What do we do?" Nara held the crystal tightly. "If I give them this, they will leave. But they will use it for control, not peace." "Then don't give it," Bryn said. "We'll protect it. We'll protect you." The ground shook gently. The light from the ship turned white. Something was about to happen suddenly. A new voice came from behind. "Wait!" Everyone turned. In. Older woman stepped forward. She wore a long coat and held a badge of the city council. Her name was Mara, a leader of the lower district. "I've seen the reports," she said. "I've heard the message. This city will not give up one of its own." She walked to Nara and stood beside her. "If the people stand for her, then the city will too," she said clearly. More officers and council workers arrived. They did not bring weapons. They brought cameras. They broadcast the scene across the city. People in towers, shops, and homes watched in silence, the ship in them. Sky paused. Then the voice returned. "You have made your choice. The subject will remain. We will watch. If harm comes to this world, we will return." The beam of light faded. The drones rose into the air and flew back toward the ship, slowly. The large shape in the sky turned and vanished behind the clouds. The city was quiet. Bryn looked at Nara. She was breathing hard but standing tall. "They're gone," he said. Nara nodded. For now, the crowd cheered. Not loudly, but with relief. People hugged each other. Some cried. Bryn turned to Mara. "Thank you." She smiled. She earned her place, and so did you. That night, Nara sat in her shelter with the crystal in her hand. Bryn sat beside her. "You didn't run," he said. "I didn't have to," she replied. "Because someone stood with me." Bryn looked at her. "What happens now?" She looked at the stars. Now we live. Weeks passed after the ship disappeared from the sky. Life in Oran 5 slowly returned to normal. The streets were busy again. The air buzzed with the sound of hover cars. Ads blinked on every corner. But something had changed. People now looked. Up. They remember the day the ship came. They remember the message. And they remember the girl with silver skin and quiet eyes who had stood without fear, while the city stood with her. Bryn walked through the market with a basket in his hand. He waved at a fruit seller who smiled and gave him to apples for free. A few children ran past him, pointing to the alley where Nara used to stay. That's where she lived, one of them said. She made the lights spin. Bryn smiled and kept walking. Nara no longer stayed in the small shelter behind the factory after the event with the ship. The city council gave her a small space near the community center in the lower district. It wasn't fancy, just the rooms and a roof, but it had clean water, power, and safety. Bryn visited her every day. When he arrived, he found Nara sitting at a table with two young boys. They were looking at a map while Nara showed them something on a screen. "You're teaching again," Bryn said as he stepped in. Nara looked up and smiled. "They want to learn how to build a signal box. I said I would show them." The boys stood up, nodded to Bryn, and ran outside with excitement. Bryn sat down across from her. "You're becoming famous," he said with a grin. Nara shook her head. "Not famous, just busy." Bryn looked around the room. On one wall, there were pictures drawn by children. Most of them showed stars, strange symbols, and a figure with glowing eyes. Some even had Bryn standing beside her. "You're a hero." To them, Bryn said, "I don't want to be a hero," she replied. "I just want to belong." "And now you do," Bryn said. Outside, the lower district was changing. People who had once ignored each other now talked more. A group of humans and aliens worked together to paint the old walls near the market. Someone had written in bright letters, "One small act can change everything." It had started with one human giving food to one alien, but now it had become something bigger. Nara was no longer the quiet figure sitting beside a trash bin. She had become a part of the city. She helped repair broken machines, taught alien children, and even started planting small green spaces using soil from her home world. People came to her with questions. She always listened. One evening, Bryn and Nara sat on a bench outside the center. The sky above was dark, but peaceful. A few stars peeked through the clouds. "Do you ever think they'll come back?" Bryn asked. Nara was quiet for a moment. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not the same ones, but others will come from other worlds with other reasons." Bryn nodded. "Are you afraid?" She looked at him and shook her head. "Not anymore." He smiled. "Good, because you're not alone." They sat together for a while, listening to the sounds of the city. It wasn't silent anymore. It was alive. There was laughter, music, the sound of machines, and voices from different languages. It was a city with many kinds of people, a city that had learned to care. The next morning, Bryn woke up to a message on his screen. It was from the City Council. Community Award, Bryn, for compassion, courage, and service to peace. Ceremony next week. He read it twice. He didn't feel like a hero. He just did what felt right. Later that day, he showed the message to Nara. She read it and smiled. "You earned this," she said. "I didn't do anything special," he replied. "You saw someone when others looked away," she said. "That is special." Bryn looked at her, thinking of the first day they met. She had been silent, hungry, and alone. Now she stood with others, helped them grow, and gave them hope. "You've come far," he said, "and you helped me walk the first step," she answered. In the weeks that followed, more changes came. A new center was open for alien rivals, with clean rooms and learning spaces. Volunteers from across the city came to help. Bryn joined the team as a full-time worker. Nara helped design a system that translated over 30 alien languages to Basic. People from other districts began to visit. They brought stories, gifts, and even songs from other worlds. Oran 5 became more than a city. It became a place of welcome, and whenever someone asked where it all began, People pointed to the corner of a quiet street. Beside a broken wall and an old trash bin. That's where she sat, they said. And that's where he saw her. Bryn and Nora remained close. They worked together, laughed together, and sometimes sat in silence just to remember. One evening, as they watched the stars again, Nora said softly, "I thought I was nothing, just a shadow. But you saw something in me." Bryn looked at her with calm eyes. "You were never nothing. You just needed someone to remind you." She reached into her coat and pulled out the glowing crystal. It still shimmered softly, but now it pulsed with a peaceful rhythm. "This is my heart," she said. "But this city, and the people in it, became part of that too." Bryn nodded. "You gave them something too. You showed them what it means to care." Nara looked at the stars. "I wonder how many others are out there, still waiting to be seen." Bryn smiled. "Then maybe we should keep looking." And they did it together.